In the bitter winters of World War II, when men slept in frozen foxholes and ate rations that stiffened like bricks, one piece of field equipment quietly revolutionized soldier comfort and survival: the World War II field heater. While often overshadowed by tanks, rifles and rations, this humble device became the difference between frostbite and function, between misery and morale. And what's fascinating is that the technology born from that era didn't just serve the battlefield. It became the direct ancestor of the gear modern campers, explorers and preppers still rely on today. The story begins on frozen battlefields where survival depended on heat. During the European and Pacific campaigns, especially in the Ardennes and Korea's later winters, the temperature dropped so low that rifles froze solid, boots cracked, and fuel turned sluggish. Troops needed heat not only for comfort, but to stay alive. Early makeshift solutions, like burning fuel in tins or using open campfires, were dangerous and inefficient. That's when the United States Army introduced a small, ingenious tool: the M1941 field stove and later the M1942 Emode mountain stove. These portable stoves were designed for soldiers on the move, lightweight, collapsible and able to run on almost any fuel available, from gasoline to white gas. They could boil a canteen of water in minutes, thaw frozen rations, and even heat small tents. Unlike bulky stationary heaters, these compact models were built for mobility and ruggedness, capable of withstanding Arctic winds and tropical humidity alike. The brilliance of the M1942 lay in its simplicity. A pressurized fuel tank fed vaporized gas through a burner that produced a focused flame, maximizing heat with minimal waste. It required no electricity, could be lit with a match or spark, and packed neatly into a soldier's rucksack. The field heater wasn't just a comfort, it was a survival system. In harsh conditions, the body loses heat faster than it can produce it, and hypothermia can set in within hours. Soldiers knew this firsthand. The field heater became a lifeline, allowing them to dry socks, warm hands, and keep morale from freezing alongside the mud and snow. In the Battle of the Bulge, men huddled around these stoves inside makeshift dugouts, melting snow for drinking water and heating sea rations, just enough to make them edible. These small heaters also served as emergency repair tools. Mechanics used them to thaw engine oil or warm up frozen machine parts. In one documented case, an M1942 stove was used to prevent a Jeep engine from freezing overnight in sub-zero temperatures, an improvisation that saved an entire unit's mobility. For survivalists today, the same principle applies: heat equals life. Whether you're winter camping, hunting, or preparing for emergencies, a compact heat source that doesn't depend on the grid is, well, non-negotiable. Many of today's portable stoves, from MSR to Coleman backpack models, owe their DNA to these wartime heaters. Post-war innovation carried the field heater into civilian life. When the Second World War ended, thousands of surplus stoves were sold to civilians and outdoor adventurers. These became the foundation for post-war camping gear. The design of the M1942 inspired later models like the Coleman Peak 1 and the Svea 123. Lightweight, efficient stoves that became staples for hikers and mountaineers through the 1950s and 60s. What made these designs so enduring was their combination of portability and performance, Soldiers had already tested them in the worst conditions on Earth, from the Italian Alps to the Burmese jungles, so they were proven reliable. Manufacturers took those lessons and refined them for peacetime adventurers, making camping safer and more accessible to ordinary people. The connection between military necessity and outdoor recreation can't be overstated. Every time you pack a camp stove or use a compact fuel canister, you're carrying forward a piece of Second World War engineering meant for survival under fire. If you want to channel the ingenuity of those field stoves in your own off-grid or outdoor setup, it's not just about buying fancy gear. It's about understanding the principles behind it. First, portability and reliability outweigh luxury. A simple, fuel-efficient stove that works in wind and cold beats any complex gadget. Second, learn to use multiple fuel types. Just as soldiers used gasoline, diesel or alcohol, depending on what they could find, you can adapt modern multi-fuel stoves to burn various fuels. This adaptability is what keeps you functional when resources run thin. Third, always build with redundancy. WWII soldiers carried both the field stove and the simpler buddy burner, a tin filled with wax and cardboard that acted as a backup heater. You can make your own using paraffin wax and corrugated cardboard inside a tuna can. It's cheap, lightweight, and can cook or heat water in an emergency. Even more practical is learning to make a small rocket stove from metal cans, an idea that traces its lineage to World War II's trench heaters. Heat in the field wasn't just physical comfort, it was psychological resilience. When soldiers could make a hot cup of coffee, warm their hands, and share a few quiet minutes by the stove, it reminded them of home. In countless diaries, GIs mentioned the relief of that small ritual, boiling water, heating food, and feeling human again amid chaos. That same ritual carries over to modern life. When campers brew coffee on a compact stove at dawn, or preppers light a fire after a storm, they're tapping into something ancient. The idea that fire and heat are symbols of survival, civilization, and hope. Even today, veterans who remember those stoves often say they weren't just tools, they were anchors of sanity. They brought a sense of order to the disorder of war, and that's a lesson we can all take with us. The World War II field heater remains a quiet symbol of human adaptability. The soldiers who used them didn't have ultralight gear or synthetic insulation. What they had was ingenuity and discipline. They took a compact piece of metal, a bit of fuel, and the will to endure, and turned it into warmth against the coldest odds. In a world that's rediscovering the value of resilience, that lesson feels urgent again. Whether you're a history enthusiast, a camper, or a prepper, the World War II field heater is more than an artifact. It's a blueprint for survival thinking. It shows how simplicity, adaptability, and skill can turn scarcity into safety. So, next time you light your portable stove on a cold morning, remember the men who first used it. Not for recreation, but for life. They weren't thinking of comfort, they were thinking of tomorrow. And in that act, they left us one of the most enduring pieces of survival gear ever made. If you found this deep dive into wartime ingenuity insightful, make sure to subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more forgotten technologies, battlefield innovations, and survival lessons history nearly buried. Share this episode with with a fellow history enthusiast or outdoorsman, because the best tools aren't just forged from metal, but from the endurance of those who came before us.